The Opinion Line on Cork's 96 FM.
I might remember last week, Patricia was on the Opinion Line talking about the Besborough story and the ongoing Besborough planning story. But she was telling me, outside of that, she was telling me about her dad and her beloved dad who died during COVID, but had been born in Besborough. And she knew very little about him until after he died, because he didn't want her to go looking while he was alive, so she respected his wishes. Patricia is based in Holland, but from Cork originally, and she went looking, and she found out quite a lot. When you got the files then, you discovered that there were people belonged to him still alive.
I saw the name of my dad's father and I was quite thrilled. Got everything together, all the information. And Daniel looked up the headstones of my grandmother, and then we found out where they were actually from. It's in County Cork. Eventually figured out the birth dates and put one and two together. I decided, to buck up the courage. And they invited me down and they opened up with open arms. I met both families and they're living opposite each other in the village. It's unbelievable.
That's Patricia. And she mentioned a name there, Daniel. The Daniel she mentioned is Daniel Loftus. Now, in the world of adoption and tracing and mother and baby homes and all these things, there are people called search angels. I've known many great ones over the years, but Daniel Loftus has taken it, in many people's opinion, to a new level. He has founded Project Infant, and I'm delighted to say, after meeting him many, many times at the commemoration every summer, he's with me now. Daniel, good morning to you.
Hi, PJ. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Project Infant has grown legs. It has really taken off. Explain for people what it is.
Yes, so Project Infant, as you said, has changed quite a bit over the years. So it began as a means to try and record the names of those who died in mother and baby homes in and around Ireland, because, as we all know, with the Commission's report, we would have only usually seen a certain number of children dying or a certain number of mothers dying in each institution, with no kind of human aspect to it, giving them an identity or giving them their name back. So that is what I set out to do originally. And as it grew, I brought on volunteers who have been more than giving with their time and have made it into what it is today. And as time went on, we then started to try and record the names of those who died in industrial schools and later Magdalen laundries as well.
Now, you are a genealogist, and therefore
Yes.
you're trained in using public record. Much of the information that you have used in putting Project Infant together is public record. You just know how to find it.
Yeah, so majority of what we have on Project Infant is compiled from scouring through thousands and thousands of death records to try and identify who died in a particular institution. So if we know, say, for Besborough, for instance, we'd be looking at Cork District, so we'd be scouring through, I think we scoured through about 20,000 different death records trying to identify children from Besborough. And once the front page of the Examiner went up in January 2021 with the names publicised.
Right.
There were ones that weren't kind of in that sheet. So we, at Project Infant, we found, I think, another 74. So I think we know 891 names now, thanks to Donal O'Keefe, who had found the first 814 names, and then we found the additional, or 817, and we found the additional ones.
So someone comes to you, let us imagine now, take obviously what happened between you is between you, but take Patricia's case where she knew
Yes.
that Dad had been born down there, but she kind of really didn't know where to go after that. Talk us through the process, Daniel.
So for Patricia's dad, it was a sense of, she had information regarding her father's origins in terms of where his parents had come from. So it was a case of trying to then look in public records. So I had a mother's name and I believe I had a father's name. Mm-hmm. And I went looking through public records in trying to identify, who came from this townland in rural Cork that matches the information, would kind of be a possible fit for the person itself. And I then came across like a couple that had, or a couple of records that pertained to Patricia's dad's whereabouts, and found using the West Cork Graveyard database that I can't remember which graveyard in particular.
No, but what you're doing is you're outlining the process. You went and you found graveyards, you found headstones, you found this and that. You put all the information together, you used your skills to put the information together, so she knew where to go. And in the end, as she said, she was welcomed with open arms. She discovered, as she told me last week, and people can catch it back on the Onic Player, she discovered that her dad's parents had lived until he was nearly 60. Like, these were things she never ever knew, and he never ever knew, which is wonderful work from you. Your own mom, Daniel, was born in Bessborough. Is that what inspired you to start this?
Yeah, she was she was a big part of it, as well as my aunt, who was also adopted like my mom. So with those two, and having kind of adoption being a big part of my family history, there is a part where, people should know where they come from, and I try and do my utmost to try and help people discover that, be it through DNA or be it through genealogy or something. It's important that people know, because I've helped people who have discovered that they've had siblings who have since passed or something, and that they might need to go for testing for a particular illness or something. Yes. And, it's a multifaceted issue in knowing your identity and having access to records, be it, your own records or kind of your ancestors' records are important. It's not just, your records. And it's not just you that it impacts, it is any descendants you have as well. You are, if you want to put it into a term, you are a branch on a family tree. There's your family tree, and many other family trees extend from that. And, if it's on public record, you're entitled to know what it is. Am I right? Yes. Yeah. So of the children that are missing, and this is the big story, of course, there's over 850 children missing. Now, let me get this right. Have you identified their names and when they died, and maybe how they died? Have you identified that? So currently we have the names of 891. We're still trying to find the remaining 32, but I know from the Commission's report that there are possibly, they stated that there was, I think, 99% of the children had an identifiable GRO record. Now that could be about 10 or 11 children that we can't find from a death record, and would only be able to be found from an institutional record or from something that the Commission would have held, which unfortunately is sealed, so we can't get access to that. So I'd estimate the most that we can establish the names of currently are about 911 or 912. And with two of them, I remember I found in Dublin. So it's not just in Cork that we'd be having to extend our search to. It's also Dublin, which we are currently doing at the moment. And it's a massive undertaking, but we're trying to find the remainder of the children. Yeah, and when people go to, say, the commemoration in June, or as they went to the event, the demonstration outside, there are boards there with names on them. What are on? People were standing there looking at those boards, reading that list, who mightn't have understand what they're looking at. Tell me what they're. So those boards would have been a work that we undertook at Project Infant to try and compile the names and to essentially generate a comprehensible list of any children that we have identified that have died in or are connected to Bessborough but died elsewhere from 1922 through to 1998, but it only goes up to 1994. And it would include the date that they died, their name that we can identify, and any cause of death for them as well. And you can often see trends in sort of like a high case of marasmus, gastroenteritis. Yeah, what is marasmus, Daniel? It comes up a lot, and I know someone said it's a form of malnutrition. What is marasmus, or do you know? So marasmus would be kind of classed as failure to thrive. So it would have been kind of if their body wasn't accepting the nutrients or that sort of thing would have been what marasmus would have consisted of. So there was a lot of failure to thrive within Besborough.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to get into the planning discussion this morning. That will play out as it does, and we know where it's going, and we'll talk about it again. But in terms of locating them, like of the 800 and something that you found, are you happy with their last place of rest, Daniel? Do you know anything about it?
So far we have we've identified the burial places of 65 children. So there's 858 missing. And in terms of the last place of rest, I've been to visit a lot of the ones that I know of. And some of them are in St. Joseph's Cemetery, and they're in a poor ground plot, which if you went and look at it, it's just a stretch of grass.
That's
you wouldn't notice anything about it. Yeah. Yes, so that's in Ballyfan. Another one is St. Finbar's, where on the Toytop Road, not Toytop Road.
The Angels Wall, yes, we know. People know that one. The Angels Road, yeah.
Yeah, so St. Finbar's, there was a number of plots there, one of whom was owned by St. Anne's Adoption Society, which, again, there's only a plaque, but it does not bear anyone's name. Yeah. And there are other, like, non-perpetuity plots that they are in, and it's just... I think there's only one child who's actually buried with family, and in terms of the other ones, it's just... We should be trying to find the children, and that hopefully will be done in time.
Yeah. Hopefully be done in time. There's a lot of them to find, Daniel, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that there should be an excavation down at Besborough, given what you know or what is possible?
Well, I believe there should be an independent investigation, and there is means to do that through ground penetrating radar. And in terms of if there should be an excavation, I personally believe that there should be, because it is a case of, with it being done in Tuam, it'd be, it'd just create that hierarchy if that kind of courtesy isn't extended to other institutions. And knowing that there are survivors who want their family members who have died in Besborough to be reunited with them, it's important that we try to honour collective wishes and try and ensure that we try and reunite these children with their families, because it's only right that they are.
I spoke to a woman down there on the day, Daniel, and I said, you think I said, why are you here? She said, my brother. Her words were, my brother is in there somewhere. Yeah.
And that is the case for 858 people, or 858 families. It is a wide issue.
If I remember my basic knowledge of the law, it is an offence to not indicate where a body has been laid to rest in this country. Which would mean that
my knowledge it is.
We have many crime scenes around the mother and baby homes of Ireland, I would have thought, Daniel.
Well, with the lack of marking for an awful lot of graves that I've seen, PJ, it's certainly very distasteful, if not criminal.
Yeah. You will continue. You've moved on now. You're doing many other things too. You're not just the mother and baby homes, the industrial schools. What are you finding? I think what you're finding is very disturbing about Ireland back in the day.
Yes, and in terms of institutionalization in Ireland as a whole, I think it's still something I think the country is still come to terms with, in that it's something that has all impacted us in some shape or form. Like, I still get messages and emails from people who said, I just discovered my grandmother had a child. And I never knew about it, and she never told us either. And I, when looking through something, and I found there was a mention of a child, and I've had people who've come to me and they said, I only found a relative of mine who died in a mother and baby home because they were mentioned on Project Infant. And, it's just that element of people don't even realise that they have family until they go looking. Yeah. And it's just a travesty.
As you know, Daniel, one of the great search angels, known affectionately as the Prof, and the Pine, taught me a lot of what I know about how this is done, and like we used to deal with the 1910 census because we know we're very limited in what we can get our hands on for censuses. The 1926, and this is a comment coming in, the 1926 will be released shortly, and that'll be there'll be a lot of new information in that. And is there any research that could be done on the grounds of St Finbarr's? Because that, as you know, Daniel, is a vast campus.
Yes, I suppose with the 1926 census, it is an interesting glimpse into Ireland at the time, in that it is the first census that will have actually recorded mother and baby home like Besborough and a lot of other mother and baby homes as well. So it'll be a very interesting thing to see, because they only had two forms, which is Form A, which is the household return, and Form B, which is the enumerator's return. And for Form A, they're all classed as households. And I suppose in some way it's an interesting way to describe the institutional system if it's being described as a household, considering, with the stories that we've heard from it, they were far from any sort of thing that might be described as a household.
Yeah. There's a lot to be from. 2026 will reveal a lot, and St Finbarr's, when you think of the history of the various parts of the plot, wasn't there a workhouse there at one point?
St Finbarr's, yes. So a good few of the hospitals that we have now used to be county homes, and then before the county homes they were workhouses. So yes, St Finbarr's would have been the Cork County home, and we would have had there obviously would have been a certain degree of burials taking place in graves. Now, whether they would have been marked, it would not have necessarily been the case, especially if they were in the non-perpetuity plot.
Yeah, so we could have more on the grounds of St Finbarr's Hospital, and only the 26th census will tell us more about that. This has become your life's work, hasn't it, young man?
Well, it's certainly become my work for a few years so far, definitely.
Yeah. And long may it continue, because you've brought the term search angel to another level. And I think I said this publicly at the commemoration the last year or the year before. You will probably go down as the greatest search angel of the modern day. Daniel, thank you very much, young man. Thank you so much for what you've done for the people of Besborough and other places too. That's Daniel Loftus. He is the man behind projectinfant.ie is the website. You can search through it. You can find more information. You can ask him questions. You can contact him. Daniel Loftus, projectinfant.ie.
Cork's 96 FM.